everybody, it's Jewelyn. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my top 10 series that I am expanding, which is going to be very fun for me. So it is Aloha Friday. I'm heading out to the Bay Area tomorrow evening after I teach my morning classes. It is my one day off from teaching and dancing, which I'm so thankful for. I love all of my careers and everything that I do, but it's nice to be able to have a full day at home to reset, film for the channel, and get ready for my next adventure, which I'm really excited to go back to the Bay Area. I haven't been back in the Bay Area for, I want to say, since last summer when I went out there for my summer intensive, and I did do a bunch of come with me's out there too, but this time my school moved from Berkeley to Oakland. I'm really interested to see what plant life is like in the Oakland area, so stay tuned for hopefully a couple come with me's depending on my schedule. So today I wanted to dedicate my top 10 series, but expanding it into a top 10 largest plants in my collection. Now when I was thinking about this and looking at my 400 plants or so to talk about today, it was so hard for me just to choose 10 from all of them. So I want to do subcategories again, 10 top houseplants, cacti, and succulents that are the largest in my collection. I think that would be also fun for me to sit down and just kind of see where my collection is at. This is the first time I'm doing this top 10 series, so I hope you guys enjoy this video just as much as I do sitting down and sharing with you my largest babies. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about my first baby here. So I want to say this is a Philodendron cilium. I love this plant. As you can see, it's very large. I'm gonna try to showcase my plants on one of my Tiffany blue plant stands here so that you can see exactly how large it is. There may be a few babies I'm gonna have to probably walk to because it's too heavy for me to carry, but this is one of my largest babies, and as you can see, it takes up a fair amount of space. So I purchased this plant, I want to say, in Las Vegas. So I purchased this plant in Las Vegas, I want to say about 2 years ago, and it currently lives inside of my home by my love seat. Now whenever I do travel for a handful of days and my place is closed up, I do bring all my large houseplants outside in my patio so they can get natural sunlight, and this is one of them. This has been in my collection for about 2 years. I think I got this plant, I want to say I got this plant in Las Vegas. As you can see, there's a new baby leaf that's about to unfurl here. This plant is a giver. I've never had any problems with it. I recommend this Philodendron. Philodendrons are very easy plants. I don't think I've ever had any problems with any Philodendrons. Don't mark my word, but for the most part, Philodendrons are growers and givers and very stylish plants. So it's living in a big white planter that I probably got from TJ Maxx Las Vegas. And as you can see, the new baby leaf unfurling is absolutely adorable. This plant has been living in this planter its entire life, and I just love the aesthetic of it. I really enjoy this plant in my home. It definitely completes the jungle vibe look. So if you're looking for a plant that takes up a lot of real estate, this one might be for you. Again, if you live in a tiny space, you might want to stay away from these philodendrons because they do get really, really big. And you'll see in a second, George is one of my favorites that do take up a lot of real estate. But I hope you guys enjoy seeing the update of my Philodendron cilium, and I want to say that he's probably going to live in this planter its entire life, and I hope that in the future he'll put off new leaves and maybe grow more upright. As you can see, his style of how he likes to grow is on the wide open side. So at one point he was a little snitched up with Velcro tape so that he can be a little bit more upright. I might do that just to help him. So I could get some Velcro tape and just hug it in here for a little bit, and then maybe after 2 weeks or so let it go, and then hopefully he'll be a little bit more upright. But for now, he's spewing out like crazy. And this plant is really tall. As you can see exactly how big one of his leaves are, it's bigger than my head. So very fun house plant. So here's probably one of his biggest leaves right here. Isn't that so stunning? So I love looking at him, and I love having him in my collection. Here's my next baby that I would like to highlight in today's video. This is my largest fiddle leaf fig. You've seen it recently on my Clean With Me series with my grandma. I do have 3. This is my mother plant. And as you can see, it's doing pretty good. Now the fiddle leaf fig do get really tall and large. Mine is on the short side, but nonetheless, it's been doing really good in my collection. I've had it now for over 2 years, and I haven't killed the fiddle leaf fig. I am loving the Ficus lorata in my home. I have 3 of them spaced out, and they all live in my patio, and it's living its best life in Santa Monica. I know my original fiddle leaf fig, which might have been this one, lost all of its leaves in Las Vegas, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I didn't want to throw out the plant. Brought it back to Santa Monica, and its leaves grew back, so I'm really actually happy that it's doing good. This plant is very finicky. It likes humidity, it likes tropical weather, it doesn't like the dry desert heat, so I don't suggest this plant if you are living in an area where it's not really plant friendly weather, unless you maybe have it indoors with the right condition of growing the plant with natural lighting. Otherwise, I know a lot of people message me telling me that their fiddle leaf figs are dropping leaves. My suggestion is always keeping it clean. It has large leaves, so you want to make sure that it's dust free. I try my best to keep it clean, and that's one reason why I love my Clean With Me series, because it helps me stay on top of my collection as well. And if you watch my Clean With Me series featuring my fiddle leaf figs, there was spider mites on my plants, so it's also a good time for me to check the condition of the plant. And that happens sometimes. It's very rare that I do get these problems with my collection. This is probably like the 3rd plant that I've seen spider mites ever on my collection. So as far as for like bugs and pests and my big collection, this is probably the 3rd plant that's ever been infested with bugs. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on it, because you never know, it may pop up again. But for the most part, the fiddle leaf fig is one of my largest plants that I've had in my collection now for over 2 years. I don't suggest this plant again if you live in an area where it's dry and like desert-like conditions. For where I'm at in Southern California, it's pretty much plant season all year long. So my fiddle leaf fig does stay outside in my patio all year long, which is really fun to think about, because I don't have to bring my plants all inside, which would be kind of crazy to imagine that. And it's currently living in a sand pot, which I got from Las Vegas, and it's been living in this its entire life. I haven't had any problems with this plant in Santa Monica, so if you live in Southern California, this might be the plant for you. And again, mine is on the short side. This plant do get pretty large and taller than me, actually. I've seen them like maybe double the size of me at some different nurseries that I've gone to. Will that plant ever get that tall? I'm not too sure. Now at the fitness club that I used to work at, where Catherine's still at, there's a big fiddle leaf fig tree in our upstairs lobby, and I used to just like drop jaw that all the time. I used to be in awe with that fiddle leaf fig, because that's like probably the largest fiddle leaf fig I've ever seen in person. It's gorgeous. But this is my biggest one, and I absolutely love having it. And besides it getting spider mites, and now that I kind of controlled the issue, I don't see anything on this plant today. Hopefully it's gonna be happy for the rest of the planting season. But so far so good here in Santa Monica. Alright, up next is my beautiful Burgundy rubber plant. It's pretty tall, almost taller than me. And I think this might be one of the next plant babies that I would like to feature in the Clean With Me series, along with my other rubber plants, because I see that it's kind of dusty and getting some cobwebs. Poor thing. I love this plant. I probably had this plant in my collection for over 2 years, and I love seeing this in my collection. One of my tallest plants in my collection, which is really fun to think. It is on the hardy side, and I love seeing this grow on me. Now there's 2 different variations of the rubber plant, short and bushy, and a little bit smaller leaves, and then like one stem, super tall and spread out. So this is the type of rubber plant that I have. I love them both, and I have them both. So this is a really stunning plant to have, a very hardy plant. So if you're looking for a nice house plant that is drama free, I highly recommend the rubber plant. It's a very mod looking plant and very stunning. I'm gonna lift it up so you can see how big the planter is. Here is the planter. Here is the bottom part of the plant. So it's super tall. It's living in a blue and white planter that I got from my local Ross's, believe it or not, here in Santa Monica. And it's been living in this planter ever since I got it. I think prior to this it might have been living in a sand pot, but I am pretty impressed with this plant. It's doing really good, but I can see just the condition of the plant living outside in my patio. It does get dusty, so stay tuned for a Clean With Me series featuring my rubber plant, because these leaves, when they're clean and shiny, they're just so stunning to look at. Sound off down below if you have the rubber plant. How tall is yours? Is it like mine's where it's really super tall with one stem, or is it short and bushy? I like both variations. I'll go ahead and see if I can tilt the plant so you can see exactly how tall this thing is. And yes, it's really tall. I think I might have been able to get a baby off of this one. And I think one of my subscribers actually has the baby from this mother plant. Yeah, I think so. One of my subscribers has a baby from this mother plant. And on the top, let's see here if I can share it with you. If I tilt it on the side here. Here on the top of the plant, you can see there is lots of new growth happening. So this is a very large plant, and whenever I handle this plant, I'm very careful because I do not want to ruin the plant. So I hope you guys enjoy seeing an update on my beautiful burgundy rubber plant. This plant has been featured in my top 10 favorite house plants sometime last year, and I really appreciate having this plant in my collection. I want to say I got this plant maybe in Las Vegas. I'm not sure. It's been with me for quite some time. But it's interesting to think that so far the plants that I've been like talking about has been with me for 2 years or so. So, you know, I've had them when they were really small, and it's really nice to sit down and share with you the progress and how it's been doing over the last couple of years in my collection. Up next, I want to go ahead and share with you my beautiful Hoya compacta. This is the largest one I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm gonna go ahead and stand up so you can see exactly how long the trails are. Here's my big baby. So this is probably one of my longest trailing houseplants in my collection. If you watch my channel and keep up with me, you know this was gifted to me by my friend Tristan, and I love seeing this plant in my collection. It was gifted to me full of blooms. I also did my first episode of Clean With Me featuring this plant baby, but as you can see, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it is getting dirty already. So this is kind of a high maintenance plant if you want to keep it nice and clean. Again, I could leave this in my home, but I think Hoyas, they probably love living in my patio more than inside of my home. Inside of my home, I don't have too much light, and my patio is on the shaded side. So I think Hoyas are much happier in my patio. But here's an update of what it looks like. It lost all of its blooms, but it's okay because my Hoya Bella is giving me blooms now, which I can appreciate. So sound off down below if you have a Hoya. I know I gifted Tristan a part of my original Hoya, which took me over 2 years to grow, not even 3 inches. So for me, I consider the Hoya compacta a slow grower. But again, if you're patient, I don't even know how old this plant is. I want to say over 20 years old. It'll give you a super beautiful long trail and hopefully beautiful blooms. Sound off down below, how long is your Hoya compacta? And do you like Hoyas? Or I know if you guys watch me, I am obsessed with Hoyas, and this is probably one of my favorite ones just because of just the amount of trails and how full it is. It's very impressive. Even with looking at this plant, even if you're not into plants, this is gonna really make you appreciate plants, even if you're not a plantaholic. But let me know, what do you think about my Hoya and where it's at? It's still living in a nursery planter. I think the next time I do have time, I can go ahead and get this plant out of its nursery planter and into a terracotta, I'm thinking. So stay tuned. My grandma and I will probably do that when I'm back from Oakland. That would be like a really good project for the channel, so stay tuned. But yes, this is one of my largest houseplants. Alright, here is the next baby that I want to feature that is not trailing but taking up a lot of real estate in this planter. I think I'm gonna have to upgrade it to a bigger planter soon. This is one of my prized houseplants in my collection, my panda philodendron, and I am obsessed with this one. This is actually my second one, and my original one is probably a little bit smaller than this one, so this is probably the reason why I purchased it, and I felt like it was a rescue. Kind of recently in my collection, I want to say sometime this year, from a nursery out in Upland, California, which I found another really cool philodendron there, my philodendron red emerald. I love both of them, and this lives in my bathroom on top of my shelf, and it loves the humidity in there. This plant do come out every now and then into the patio to get some natural sunlighting. I probably featured this in a pot of fame because this plant does give out new leaves very often. This is one of my rare philodendrons. I don't really consider it a common plant. I think I seen it once in West Hollywood, and I made Catherine pick it up because I knew that it was a rare philodendron and one of my favorites. Other than that, I haven't seen this plant in person anywhere else really, so I want to consider it a rare plant. Sound off down below if this plant is also considered rare where you live. This plant, I swear I could have so much fun propagating from this plant, but I don't want to touch it, and I just love the characteristic of it, the way how it grows. It's wild and crazy. I'll give it a spin so you can see just the dimension of the plant, and if you look really closely you can see tons of aerial roots growing out. So this would be a very fun project to propagate from. Literally every single section of the plant you can see aerial roots and lots of new growth happening here. So here's one of its newest leaves here. Another one should be popping through, and I love looking at this thing in my collection. This is probably one of my top 10 priceless plants in my collection, or at least up there. I was so in awe when I seen this in person, and it looked not in the best condition, and when I brought it home I restyled it, and as you can see it is top heavy, so I'm gonna have to take it out of this planter. So here is the planter that it's currently living in, one of the planters I got from Ontario, California. But just look at the size of the plant compared to the size of the planter. I'm gonna have to give it a new home very soon, so stay tuned. I'm gonna have to do planter shopping, but I'm really picky when it comes to the aesthetic of my plant and planter. But it definitely needs a home, probably double the size of the planter that it's currently in. This has been putting off so many leaves since I brought it in my collection, and I have it staked up on a bamboo stake that it came with from the plant nursery. But I think I will go ahead and restyle the plant when I transplant it into a bigger planter, and it probably is going to be like double the size once I take off all of the Velcro tape, because I did Velcro tape it up to cinch it up together and style it. But it's put out so much new growth now that it definitely needs a restyling and a new home. But very fun, interesting plant to look at. Again, one of my most prized plants, and just the characteristic of this philodendron. Again, another philodendron. As you can see, they're growers and very different and unique from than other philodendrons that I have in my collection, and I think that's one reason why I like collecting them. But very fun, whimsical type of plant. Sound off down below if you have the philodendron panda. Do you find it rare, and how large is yours? This is my largest one. I have 2 of them, and the other panda philodendron that I do have is living in my plant gang on the side of my bed, and I love looking at it there as well. But I'd be interested to propagate from this plant. I know Carrie has a plant baby from my philodendron panda, but stay tuned because when I'm back from Oakland, I would like to dedicate a planting with Jewelyn propagating from my collection, and I might want to take from this plant. But for right now, I don't like touching it because I like seeing just the massness of the plant and just the way how it's growing. It's really fun to look at, and I appreciate all of its new leaves. It's been popping out. So shout out to my philodendron panda for making it in to today's top 10 largest houseplants. Alright, up next is my beautiful Heartleaf Philodendron. This trails on the side of my plant shelf in my home. Believe it or not, it is taller, longer than me. So I want to say this might be maybe 8 feet long. I'm gonna lift it up so you can see. So here's the top part of my big beautiful mother plant. A bunch of my friends has babies from this, and I'm gonna place this down so you can see how long the trail is. So here's the trail of the plant. As you can see, it keeps going and going and going. So this is a very long traily plant, one of my favorite common house plants. And I don't have a golden pothos, which I was thinking about while I was doing my collective series, but I have a Heartleaf Philodendron, which is also another very fun, easy, common house plant to grow in your home. And as you can see, a giver. The longest trail is probably well over 8 feet long, putting out lots of new leaves and very easy to propagate. Anytime I have fallouts from this plant, I just go ahead, water propagate it, gives me new leaves, and I either gift them or it lives in my greenhouse until I give it away or replant it into another planter. So here's a really fun update. Again, another plant I had in my collection now for over 2 years, which is very fun to think about. So I'm loving my top 10 largest houseplant episode because it gives me a chance to really think about how long I've had this plant. This series, I'm absolutely having fun with this episode because to think about how far my plants have come with me over the last 2 years or so is really fun to think about. This is probably the shortest trail. This is probably the shortest trail. Look at how cute that is. But I love looking at this anytime I'm in my home, walking to the bathroom, walking to my little kitchen area. You just see this right away as soon as you walk into my home if you watch my plant tour, and I love this common house plant a lot. I originally probably bought it for maybe $6 or so, and I mean, it has never given me any problems. I do have a smaller one that I recently purchased this year living in my bathroom because the sheets are on like a peachy side, and I thought that was really cool and different, so I purchased another one. So we'll see when it starts trailing really long on me, then I'm gonna have to probably move it. But right now that one is living at the end of my plant shelf in my bathroom. But take a look at the little aerial roots. Isn't that so cute? Very fun, easy grower. So if you're looking for a very inexpensive plant to give you jungle vibes, the Heartleaf Philodendron is one of your go-to plants. Very easy to grow, very inexpensive. So if you kill this plant, I don't see any problems with repurchasing it for a couple more dollars and giving it another try. If you're looking for a quick, easy plant to add to your collection that's drama-free, I highly recommend this plant, and it's so stunning. I can't believe it. I think this might be one of the longest trailing plants next to my Hoya compacta in my collection, which is really fun to think about. So shout out to my beautiful Heartleaf Philodendron for stealing a spot in today's video. So here's my next baby that I would like to talk about in today's video. This is my largest fern. This is my bird's nest fern. You guys seen this on probably Part of Fame. You've seen this with my Planting with Jewelyn Plant Awards, and probably one of my top 10 favorite house plants for last year. I've had this plant now for over 2 years. Love this one so much, and it's definitely in need of a cleaning. And it's living in a beautiful white round planter that I probably got from TJ Maxx Home Goods. Here's what the inside of the fern looks like. So stunning, very show-stopping type of plant. I collect ferns, so if you watch my fern collective video, you will see this plant baby featured in that video. I have this plant living in my patio full time, and it lives amongst one of my beautiful spider plants and my red Congo Philodendron, which you will see in a second. I have so much fun with ferns because there's really easy ferns to grow, and then there's very dramatic ferns to grow. This is probably one of my easiest growing ferns in my collection. I've never had problems with this fern. As you can see, this is a very statement type of plant where you're like, wow, what is that let me take a closer look at it. And it's just such a fun plant to have in my collection. It's so different from anything else, and I think that's why I love collecting plants, because they're all different in their own unique way. I love the shiny foliage, and this is its newest leaf. I'll go ahead and spin it around so you can see. And I'm just obsessed with this plant. Take a look at that. Isn't that so stunning? A nice new baby leaf. I love it. It's so soft and silky. Sound off down below if you have a bird's nest fern. Do you like ferns? As you can see, they do get pretty large. I know when I did a come with me to the botanical building in San Diego in Balboa Park, Evie stood next to like probably the largest bird's nest fern I've ever seen. It was taller than me, believe it or not. So I want to say containing it in this planter is probably the best thing for me to control the size of it. But I think that if you did stick this plant in the ground, it can easily triple in size faster than probably any house plant that I have in here. Ferns are like very easy to grow, especially if you live in Southern California where it's pretty much plant season all year long. But I don't know, if I lived in Las Vegas, would I have ferns in my collection? Probably not, because it'd be probably challenging for me to find a happy place in the home for it. But being out here in Southern California and having this big patio, I'm lucky enough to have this thing live outside full time, and I love seeing it in my space. So shout out to my beautiful bird's nest fern for being my largest fern in my collection. And to think about it, you know, being in my collection for over 2 years and all of the love that it's given me throughout the years just makes me really happy. So I'm glad I was able to highlight this plant in today's video. Alright, so up next I want to talk about a different kind of large house plant. This is one of my longest trailing house plants in my collection. This is my original string of hearts, and I'm gonna place this down so you can see exactly how long the trails are. And anytime I touch this plant, it always tangles up, so I try to not touch it because I get stressed out thinking that it gets tangled up really easy. I'm sure I could spend a whole day trying to untangle this thing up, which I will one day. As you can see, this plant is really traily and long. I'll give you an up-close point of view on this section here. You can see there's lots of blooms on this plant. I mean, this whole plant is just blooming on me. It's such a giver, and I love being able to have a handful of string of hearts in my collection. I do have, I think, maybe 3 or 4 string of hearts in my collection. This is my oldest one. So I've had this string of hearts for, I want to say, maybe 2 years, give or take. But I wanted to go ahead and include my beautiful string of hearts in my collection because it is super long and traily, and I've had this plant for a couple of years. So I didn't want to leave this one out. I've talked about this house plant a lot last year, and then I decided to kind of chill out a little bit on my original string of hearts so that I could show other plants plant love. But I still have the plant, and it's living in my bathroom, and it is touching the ground from where it lives. So on my windowsill above my toilet, my one window in my bathroom, it lives there, and it's trailing all the way down to the floor. So in time, I'll go ahead and propagate this baby. As you can see, I shouldn't have any problems propagating from this thing. This thing is a grower. But here's a fun update of my string of hearts. I haven't talked about it recently on my channel this year, I don't think. But it's here, living in my collection. And one of these days, I'll go ahead and spend some time to untangle it. But as you can see, it loves living in the bathroom. Look at its beautiful blooms. So very fun plant, and I could not pass up doing a top 10 largest houseplants in my collection and not talk about my longest trailing string of hearts. So for my red Congo Philodendron, I decided to come to her because she's very large and heavy. She's living on a bird bath. You recently seen this plant baby in a clean with me video featuring my grandma and I love having this philodendron, and I've had this philodendron also for over 2 years. And I guess I do have a theme of having large philodendrons in my collection. It is putting out a new leaf here in the center, which is really fun and exciting to see. But this plant has never given me any problems. As you can see by the size of the planter, which is really heavy, this plant is really big, so I didn't want to pick it up and bring it to where I was filming. It was one of those plants where I had to come to it. So I hope you guys enjoy seeing an update, or at least seeing my red Congo being featured on my channel. It's one of my plants that I really don't get to talk about, so that was probably one of the reasons why I wanted to feature it in a recent clean with me video with my grandma. It has very large leaves, larger than my head, but it's really fun to look at in my collection. It lives right next door to my Tiffany blue wicker chairs, which I love sitting on and my grandma enjoys as well. But this is definitely giving jungle vibes to my space, and it's so heavy that when and if I do move it, it's probably going to be for a good reason. But it's been living in this corner in my patio ever since I brought this plant from Las Vegas in my home over 2 years ago, and so far it loves living in the patio. All of this is new growth. It's very fun to see all of the new leaves pop out throughout the last couple of years on this plant. But hopefully with the new fertilized water and with the worm castings and some new topsoil on there, as you can see, there's a new leaf about to unfurl. So let's see how long it takes to unfurl. But it's always nice to see new growth on my larger plants because I know that it's happy living in my space. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and include my beautiful red Congo in today's video, because as you can see, she is really big and stunning in her own right, and I love having her in my space. Here we are with my biggest guy, George, here, and I pulled him out from where he lives on the side of my fountain. I'm not going to lift him up because he probably weighs more than me. But this is probably one of my largest houseplants, or probably the largest houseplant in my collection. And I love being able to see George grow on me. I know a bunch of you also have propagated babies off of George, which is really fun to think of, that George is living its best life in different states. But this was a rescue. I purchased this plant in Las Vegas well over 2 years ago. When I purchased George over 2 years ago, he wasn't living his best life. He looked wild and crazy. He was spewed out all over the floor. Something was tugging on my plant heart, and I said, I have to take this guy home. I need to rescue him. And so here he is living in Santa Monica, his best plant life. You've seen George featured on my channel many of times. Recently on my Clean With Me series with my grandma, giving him a nice wipe down with all of his babies. And he just recently put out a new leaf here. So shout out to George's beautiful new leaf. Here he is. Isn't it so cute? And I see one down here unfurling, and he's a giver. So I wanted to go ahead and definitely include George in today's video. He is my largest house plant. I wanted to go ahead and save George for the last plant baby in today's video, because he probably was the one that inspired me to do my top 10 largest house plants in my collection. And it's fun to think that most of my plants that I do have in my collection that are really big, that I featured in today's video, have been with me for over 2 years. And then there was maybe 1 or 2 plants that I recently got that was already large in size, but putting off a lot of new growth. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned, because I will be doing my top 10 largest cactus and top 10 largest succulent babies in my collection, which won't be as large as George, but large in their own right, and very fun for me to see where my collection is at as far as for my big babies. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's top 10 series featuring my largest houseplants in my collection. Sound off down below if your houseplants are large like mine, smaller or larger. Again, I do live in a studio and I have a big patio, so I'm lucky enough to have my patio where most of my larger babies live in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're new, welcome to the channel. Hit the bell and subscribe button to be notified on my daily uploads. I have a video live every 5 a.m. for you to enjoy. I have well over 500 episodes on the channel. You can find more on my blog at ILOVEJEWELYN.blogspot.com. Until next time, aloha from Santa Monica, California. Bye!